Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Alteryx and the Solutions Spotlight, the unique online event for industry professionals.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Solutions Spotlight featuring Alteryx, and focused on how to achieve meaningful business impact with AI, machine learning, and analytics. This spotlight will be positively chock full of business insights, with case studies and practical examples of how enterprises are moving through the stages and components of analytics maturity, why analytics maturity is good for the bottom line, and how to equip your organization to accelerate decision intelligence and achieve analytics transformations. And we have a true business intelligence expert with us today to help you learn the keys to maximize the business impact of your analytics solution. Heather Harris is the Field Chief Data and Analytics Officer for Alteryx, with deep experience leading and delivering data science, advanced analytics, and data technology solutions for some of the world's best-known brands. As an IT leader for Alaska Airlines, Heather led the Alteryx analytics transformation across the entire airline and now helps enterprises increase their analytics maturity to realize data as a key organizational asset. So let me bring in our guest expert today, live from Seattle, Washington. Heather Harris, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, hi Doug, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, it's my pleasure. As I mentioned in our intro, you're quite accomplished, and also I noted you're an author, speaker, well sought after speaker, as well as being an analytics thought leader. Before we get going, can you just share a little bit more about how you found yourself on this path? I always find it interesting when somebody has really chosen to be such a deep thinker in these sorts of things.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Really, it's the same path that I think a lot of organizations find themselves on, and that is there is so much data out there. And, for me, there's this natural curiosity, like many of us in the data space. And the motivating question or the driving question is, how do I actually get meaningful insights out of all of that data? And so for me, that led down originally a very technical journey. I started my career in engineering and then data science, and really wanting to be a part of bringing true impact out of that data, doing something with it. And so that's really how I got started on my own journey. And now what really drives me and what I'm passionate about is helping other organizations realize that same benefit from their own data.
Yeah, and that's really why we have Solutions Review covering the data and analytics space, is to really help our audience, which are end users ultimately, find the right solutions and find the best practices. And so we couldn't be happier to have you with us today. Before we get going, I'll set everybody's expectations. If you have any questions for Heather, by all means submit them. I'll take them in, and I'll let Heather go through most of her presentation, but then I'll bring them all in at the end. I'll have a few of my own, I'm sure. And we'll catch up when you're done with your presentation, Heather, to do a little Q&A.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone in the audience for joining us, and I look forward to your questions. So please don't hesitate to drop your questions in as we go, and I know Doug will be monitoring, and we'll get to those either today in the live session or we'll follow up with you. But really today we're going to talk about how can you and your organization really get to true business or organizational impact. And that can be using analytics, it can be AI, it can be machine learning. The Alteryx platform, of course, offers all of those, and I'll be sharing about that today, of course, as a solution. But we're going to talk about even more than that and some practical takeaways that you can bring from this today. So first, let me tell you a little bit more about Alteryx. And I show this slide not only to show our success. We are a very successful company in the space because we have empowered many customers to be successful getting insights out of their data. But I show you this to really let you know that we've been helping customers along the journey in all verticals and all industries and all departments be successful. And the other reason we show this is because what I'm going to bring to you today is really gleaning the best practices coming from our customers that we have seen help them be successful. And I'm going to be sharing those with you today. We are in nearly half of the top 2,000 companies in the world. And so we have some things to bring together to share with you. So where companies get started in this journey is thinking about this idea of analytic maturity. Now, there is a lot out in the marketplace today. There's a lot in the news today about AI, about machine learning, about analytics, algorithms, data. And at the heart of it all, organizations want to get more out of the data that they have. And they embark on this journey. And we can think of it as analytic maturity. And the Institute of International Analytics went out and surveyed well over 1,000 companies, and they gave them a scale of 1 to 5 and said, hey, on this scale, where are you in terms of your analytic maturity? With a 1 being, hey, we're not data driven at all. A 5 being your nirvanas. And if you want, take a guess at who those nirvanas might be. You can drop them in the chat. And Doug, feel free to interact if anyone has some guesses out there. But a 2 is where a company is really doing analytics, but it's more maybe on a department by department basis, still pretty siloed. A 3 is when a company realizes, hey, if we start bringing together our data from different departments, we can get even deeper and richer insights for our organization, for our business, and to serve our customers better, or our employees, or our partners, or whoever the stakeholder is in getting your insights. A 4 is a company that's gotten there. And so when we look at the scale, the average score of this over 1,000 companies that were surveyed is a 2.2. So there is still a way for organizations to go. And one thing I like to point your attention to is if you look at that bottom line, it's also what we see as the number of employees in a company, of workers, knowledge workers in a company who can do something with data beyond an Excel spreadsheet. And those percentages, a stage 2 being about 1% and a stage 4 being about a quarter of your workforce, really is another marker for you. And at the end of the presentation today, we're going to share with you how you can take a version of this analytic maturity assessment. We have a version, a smaller version on our website that will give you instantly a score. And what I actually recommend is that you have several people in your organization take this assessment, because everybody will bring just a little bit different perspective about it, and have them take it and see where you guys think you land. And I do this live when I train leaders regularly, and I'll have 10 leaders in a room and they'll all take it in, and it'll be really interesting and it'll generate discussion. So as you saw, the average score is a 2.2. But what we also know is that 99%, so really almost all companies, are investing somewhat in big data and AI. But the reality is that only about a quarter of those companies report actually being data driven. And so where's the gap? Why is that? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. And also, what's really important to know is, why is analytic maturity even important? And in that same survey we've been talking about, what was also found out that over a 10-year period, companies that achieve that 4 to 5 range versus companies that only stay in that 2 range have 6x the revenue over a 10-year span. So there are some pretty compelling financial reasons as well to increase analytic maturity in your organization. So how do we get there? So when we talk about the assessment, what are we really looking at? So I'm just going to drill down. I'm not going to read this entire slide to you, but I just really want to highlight in the orange text, what are actually the things to think about in an organization when you're thinking about increasing analytic maturity and getting to that business value? Well, of course, there's the state of your data. It's your own organization's approach. So there's some things about your culture that may or may not be a part of your analytic maturity. Your leadership. How is your leadership approaching analytics? What are their thoughts? What is their investment? And then the organizational alignment. If you're going to increase getting more out of your data and you want to do it across departments, you definitely need to align. How are your teams set up to do analytics? We're going to drill into this one in particular shortly. What technologies do you have? What techniques are you using? So these are the kind of things you drill into when you think about going on a journey as a company to increase your analytic maturity and, of course, increase the return on your investment into data and analytics, really to help your company be successful and achieve its most strategic outcomes. So there's a divide. This is really underlying a lot of that stuck point that organizations are running into, and why companies, even though they're investing in technology, big data and AI technology, they still only feel about a quarter data driven. A lot of people will resonate with this slide. This will resonate with a lot of people. In most organizations, there are specialists. Now, this slide says data scientists, but you can think about it as your analytic talent, your traditional data analyst, your BI experts, and they're off working on pretty meaningful problems, or I'm going to say aspire to work on pretty meaningful problems. And then there is the rest of your organization. And these are your lines of business, your various departments, and they need answers. They need lots and lots of answers daily. Why did my sales drop? Is our inventory optimal right now? Can you automate this for me? Right? They have lots of requests. And in our society, data is becoming more and more important, and everyone knows that they want and need answers from data. And so the challenge is the backlog is just too long. There are more requests from the business than your specialist teams can handle. And so when you ask companies, and Harvard Business Review went out and asked companies if they're, who's happy with this model, it's a pretty compelling no one is. It's the folks on the left, your specialist folks who are highly trained, they can't get to the meaningful problems they want. They're getting requests like, hey, can you change the color on this dashboard for me? Or can you bring in just one more column of data, preventing them from getting to deeper analysis and really tapping into their background. The folks on the left are equally frustrated because they can't get what they need fast enough. And so what really the Alteryx approach is, and why we have a solution to this, is we're not just putting out a technology platform. We've really taken the time to look at and work with the personas across an organization who need data, which, by the way, is pretty much every knowledge worker in your organization needs data to answer their questions. And by taking a persona-based approach and then aligning the capabilities of technology along with the user experience of that technology, it equips each of these personas. So let's just talk through who some of the personas are. Well, you've got your traditional technology IT persona. A lot of IT departments still have an analytics specialist team embedded in them, building out maybe enterprise dashboards or other solutions, and they still need to be serviced. And they have also a range of skills, and they need to do a range of activities. Things like standing up data into a data warehouse, getting that data, building views, whatever it is. There's a lot of data manipulation, obviously, for those folks. Data engineers are really talking about, hey, how do I enrich my data? How do I bring data sources together easily? So that's, of course, a strength of the Alteryx platform. And then you've got analysts who not only need to bring together different sources of data, but they also need to be able to get insights out of that data. And I'm going to also put data scientists in that category, or even what's termed or coined the citizen data scientist. Because if technology is doing its job, it's equipping more and more people to get into data science and be able to get answers out of data science without necessarily having to be Python or R coders or things like that. Although our platform is code-free and code-friendly, meaning it supports both. And then the persona that's really needing more and more data and needing to be more independent in getting their own answers are our business users. And that's where bringing technology and the power of AI to them. So on the far right of our Auto Insights platform, it's really using the power of AI to look at a data set and come up with a large majority of what dashboards are being built for today. Hey, look, we're in a lot of organizations. We see what they're building dashboards for. Why not go in and just automatically come up with those insights from a data set? And that's where the true power of AI under the hood can come into play to help your business user. And we're going to drill into a little bit of our technology today as well as we move through. But the key thing to the Alteryx analytics automation platform is really bringing together whatever data you have and being able to serve it up, not just for your visualization tool, not just for reporting, but other automations. So using the insights, sending those to a system to be able to automate processes as well. So what's the art of the possible? So here's just a sample of where organizations, where our customers are really leveraging analytics process automation across all departments of an enterprise. And a lot of times when customers come to us and they're new on this journey, we will sit and workshop with them. We'll start with, hey, this session today is really about how do I get the most business impact? Well, how you get the most business impact is sitting down and thinking about what business problems am I trying to solve, and then what processes or opportunities do I have to align to that. We always want to begin with that end in mind. What am I trying to solve here? What are my business challenges? And how can working with my data, which we know data is really behind almost everything today, how can I do that more effectively to accelerate those processes, automate those processes, most importantly, transform those processes? So at the heart of it all, though, is really setting up a good practice in your organization. And we talked at the beginning about how we are, in thousands upon thousands of companies, and we see what works. And so sharing with you today is this idea of a COE squared. And we call it that because there's this idea of the traditional center of excellence. So you see on the left, you've got your trusted advisor. This may be that blue team we looked at earlier. They're building solutions. There's data governance, of course. And now there's analytic governance. And this is a new concept to a lot of organizations, maybe not like our big financial institutions that we've been working with for a really long time. They've got this down right because they have to. They have to have analytic processes that are really secure and locked down. But it's a continuum. There's different levels of analytic governance for different kinds of processes in an organization. But the idea being that, yes, there's this idea of like monitoring and managing what you're doing in analytics. Because if you think about it today, let me ask you a question. How many of you that are listening know exactly what your users are doing in Excel? And more importantly, like how they're deriving their formulas, how they're making their decisions. Are you able to monitor and manage and govern that? And when you start bringing in analytics technologies, you get actually more visibility into what folks are doing with your data. And by the way, this can only help your data governance efforts as well, and any of your modernization efforts, because you have better visibility into what your business needs and what they're doing. So, but then to be effective, you also need to enable and equip your people. You need to bring them on the journey with you. At the heart of it, there is change management. And I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit later. Like, what are some of the key things we see in change management, and how can you as an organization be successful in the change management around bringing people on this analytic journey with you. So there's training, of course, and yes, hands-on keyboard training for end users who are going to use different components of the platform, but there's also training your leaders. And so I sit with rooms of leaders, and we are not doing Alteryx hands-on keyboard. What we're doing is talking about, hey, how do we build a culture of analytics? How do we support our end users? What is the art of possible between matchmaking between my business problems and the outcomes I need with what analytics can bring me? And then there's best practices. Every organization has different ways of doing things, and what do you want your users to be doing in your organization? If you're proactive in your training, you get them equipped up front, and then you have a smoother journey by equipping them as well. So those are some of the thoughts there. So let's talk about what an individual journey looks like. I'll take you on a journey from when I was in the aviation industry at an airline, but it's one that I think a lot of industries can relate to, because it has to do with fair pricing. And in any market, you're trying to think about, like, hey, what are my optimal prices? What am I going to offer them at any given time for whatever product or services I have? So that's an exercise anyway for any company. And that was an exercise for us as an airline. And that was an Excel spreadsheet process that took 1.5 to 2 weeks for an analyst. And it was a lot of cut and paste into spreadsheets to get to the numbers that the individual needed. And so by bringing that process into Alteryx, they could now prep and blend that data in a repeatable way. So they could build a workflow that did it the same way every time, because their data came in. They could do that at the push of a button. For a lot of organizations, this in and of itself is huge progress. It saves thousands upon thousands of hours across their workforce. But we're not satisfied with that. Like, we do think that's good. We know it's good. There's a lot of lift. There's a lot of financial benefit to an organization, but there's so much more. So the next thing is automating that process. So putting that on a schedule, having it just run automatically and sending out the results of that analysis. You could do it daily, weekly, minute by minute, if that's what you need, which we had some processes you did need to do minute by minute, right? It was near real time. So that once you automate it, then you've got this other lift. So now I've got an analyst who has now saved 1.5 to 2 weeks. Every given time they need to do this. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be, every week there's a process. Now they've got this time. What can they do? Do they have nothing to do? No. These are highly trained people who didn't sign up to be in Excel spreadsheet hell. And now they are so eager to solve new problems and deeper problems for the organization. So what it did for us is it provided the opportunity to go look at how we were doing some of our partner fairs with some of our partner airlines, and opened up a significant revenue channel that we hadn't been able to tap into before, to the tune of millions of dollars in that. And so that's getting to those true analytics, true analyses, deeper kinds of problems, or problems you haven't been able to get to yet. But what's even better than that is process reengineering, transforming processes, changing the way we worked with that other airline, changing the way you work with another organization. So, or maybe work with another department, but it's getting into that true transformative journey. And that is the art of the possible for each individual. And there are many stories like that that we have across all of our customers. And of course, we're happy to engage with you to see what the opportunities are for you. That's part of what we do. But it's really, I really want to share with you not just that, but just the opportunities you have in your organizations. That I want you to see what is possible with data. That it's not just about putting out more and more reports. It's about realizing that data as an organizational asset is really key on your organizational transformation journey. So another opportunity, and this one's really hot, right? With everything in the news, with AI and ML, is a lot of companies are coming to us saying, whoa, we really need to be doing predictive analytics. We need to be doing AI. We need to be doing machine learning. Like, how do we get there? Well, I like to say it's, I'm a data science leader. I've led data science teams and global consulting firms, and it's not as rocket science as people think. A lot of people think I have to go after this big moonshot, sexy project. The reality is, let me frame it up this way. Let me ask you, what are you reporting on today that happened yesterday, or maybe happened last week? What's happened the last 4 weeks, what's happened last month, what's happened last year? If there's something you're reporting on, historical numbers, you've already had to do all that data prep and blend and cleanup to get to that historical report. So guess what? You are already well positioned to your first machine learning project, because all you're doing is you're taking that very same data and you're saying, great, instead of just reporting on those historic numbers, I'm going to let the power of statistics and machine learning take a look at my data set and tell me what it predicts for the future. Based on all this historical stuff that's happened, what might happen next week or next month or next year? And so you're already well positioned with that data. And with a platform like Alteryx, you're already in the same platform. So you just take what you're already doing for reporting, you point it to our machine learning tools, and you let that start guiding you into the predictive space. So that's a great place to start. And we'll even show an example in a little bit here. So we talked about change management a little bit. Here are some key stages and tactics that we see organizations who are successful, what they do. So of course, in the beginning, you need to get your people aware and excited, like aware of what we're doing. Here's what we're going to do in this company. Here's the journey we're going on. Here's what's in it for you. Here's how you as an individual contributor are growing your career, are going to be able to find more impact out of our technology investment, are going to become more digitally savvy. Like, individual contributors love knowing those things. And of course, leaders love their teams being able to have those things. So it's first developing that. That's by just introducing them to what's out there, introducing them to success stories and use cases, and helping them see their role in it. Doing fun activities like hackathons. We have prepackaged fun activities like an escape room. So we come in, we do an analytic day. You get your team, they divide up into small teams, and they have to work their way through an escape room using Alteryx. And this is for people who've never even been hands on keyboard, or maybe just a little bit introduced to the technology. So, and it's a way to get them, engaged and start thinking about how technology can benefit them. Of course, then you do need to enable and train your people, give them the tools they need to succeed. And you could do that through boot camps, through weekly challenges that, like we put out some weekly challenges, and I've had companies use those as a team. Every Friday afternoon, they get together and they all do the weekly challenge together. There's also training the trainer. As organizations really go on this journey, they start standing up their own internal training departments, and we help equip them. We have partners to help equip them to sustain that journey, because then, of course, we get into supporting and sustaining. And I showed you guys the COE earlier, the COE squared. That's really at the heart of sustaining it, is thinking about how do we have a COE squared. Or I've even been in some companies that Maybe they don't want to call it a COE for whatever cultural reasons. They call it a community of practice. Whatever you call it, it's really about saying, hey, look, we as an organization are going to lean into this, and we're going to do some things in a thoughtful and intentional way. And really, at the end of the day, remember, we're trying to get to meaningful business impact for your organization. And these are some of the key pieces to get there. So if you dropped me into a company tomorrow, Acme Incorporated, and said, Heather, as our CDAO, we need you to help us increase analytic maturity. Here are some of the activities I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working to stand up that COE, and I'm going to make sure I'm aligning with my leaders and aligning to what the board needs and those kinds of things, and making sure that our analytic and data investments are aligned to that. And we're really working all the way up to what leadership needs. I'm going to be enabling my people. More importantly, not more importantly, but also importantly, I'm going to be enabling my leaders. I'm going to be starting an internal community of practice or user group or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to provide data challenges, but more importantly, reward and recognition. So one of the great things we do with customers is these automation challenges. And we kick it off and we say, okay, in 8 to 12 weeks, everyone, let's pick a use case, and we're all going to come back together and we're going to share what success we got. And one of the key parts is the executives come in the room, they reward and recognize the individuals for what they've done. These are the kinds of things that move the needle. They're very tactical, but very effective. And you can build intentional programs quarter over quarter to really address these key areas and say, hey, this is the journey we're on. Success metrics. We're all data people, so why not think about how we're measuring success of our analytic programs, our analytic investments? How many people have I up-leveled? How many processes have I automated? How many hours did I save? Let's talk about some other ways too. We're going to, when we come out of the demo, we're going to actually talk about how we think about capturing that business value. But let's drill in a little bit. Let's go back to the platform slide so I can orient you to where we're going to go in. So if you look here in the orange, you can see there's a number of different parts of our platform that provide AI and machine learning capabilities. Where we're going to go today is in our assisted modeling or auto ML part of the platform to show you how someone without a data science background can actually build their first data science model. And Doug, if there's any questions you want to hop in while I'm switching over, feel free.
I'm amazed at the low self-assessment on the maturity scale. I think that's incredibly self-aware, I guess. For a lot of organizations, it's always, and you know, we cover a lot of the data space. I always think it is kind of one of those dirty secrets, and maybe it's not such a dirty secret anymore, that companies don't really know what to do with their data, and I think it's actually, you know, what do they say? The first step in the path is to be self-aware. So that to me was the most kind of interesting takeaway.
Yeah, when you do that assessment too, it actually gives you some specific, ways or areas, right, that are areas of opportunity for your organization. And what we also find is we'll have. I was actually in with a group of leaders last week, and we did it as part of the leaders training. Each of them did it individually, and they actually had a range. There was one group actually in the 1 range and another group in the 2 range. And it's funny because from working with them, I think there's areas where they're actually in the 3 range. So, sometimes it's good to have those conversations, but they were truly assessing themselves as a larger company versus their department. It was under the Office of Finance and the CFO. And they had actually been making great strides. But they also, when they did that assessment, they were thinking about their organization as a whole and maybe how they might be able to be thought leaders and bring their organization along.
I do want to say that this is the reason why we love spotlights, why we love doing these, is because we get to bring folks in who can give you a perspective. And honestly, I mean, we would encourage you to reach out and connect with the Alteryx folks, because ultimately you're going to learn something regardless of kind of the outcome of that engagement. This is what it's all about in my mind, is having is taking the time and investing in the forethought to really look at what's out there and to think about what you can do to take your analytics to the next level. I mean, everybody's doing a little bit of something, obviously, but there's just so much more that can be done, and this is why we do spotlights.
Yeah, absolutely, Doug. I work with executives every day to help them be successful and get the most out of their analytic investments. So this is the Alteryx Analytics Cloud platform, and you can see in the boxes there are a number of parts of the platform. And today we're going to focus on the machine learning. And so just to show you how easy it is, we're going to go through kind of like it's my very first project. So I click on the machine learning, and here I am. And I have no projects. So I'm going to say, you know what? I have this data set. I have this new project, and I'm actually going to call it Payment Insights, because what I know I have is I have this payment data, and we're going to look at it. So I'm going to say start building. So it's going to say, okay, Heather, upload your data. So I'm going to grab this payment history data that I have, and it's going to bring that data in. And while it's bringing that data in, and this is data I've been reporting payment history on, you can see on the right, it popped up and it's telling me kind of what it's doing. It's educating me as it goes about what it's doing. It is checking my data for me. It's checking for missing values, because as a data scientist, I know that's important. As an analyst, you might not know that's important. So that's where we're doing it under the hood for you. We're checking all those things that a data scientist historically had to do kind of manually. Do I have invalid data types? Is my data not quite set up well for machine learning? So it's running through all of that. It's going to look for any potential problems. So it's read in my data, and it automatically says, yep, you have payment history. Heather, you have 2,466 rows of data. It liked that. That's a good amount of data for a machine learning project. And it identifies that I have 10 columns. So what I have in my data here, is I'm looking at late payments. So anywhere from 0 days where they're not late, and there's more, and where they reside, how much the invoice was for, did they dispute the charges? Was it a paperless bill? Was it, electronic or paper? How many days did it actually take to settle it for me to get my money? And then there's some dates in here, the paperless date, the invoice date, the due date. Well, what I'm really interested in on is the bottom line. How long does it take me to actually get to my money? So if that's what I'm trying to predict, I go through, and there's actually, there's helpers on like what I should pick and things like that. And I'm going to say that's what's most important, days to settle. So if I pick that column, I'm going to get rid of this data set information so I can see more over here. It actually lets me pick, and it tells me like, hey, what are the different kind of general areas? I actually, in this particular case, am interested in a value. Like I want to predict, the days to settle. Like what is most likely to influence the days to settle is what I'm hoping to get out of this. So I pick that and go down here. And I say days to settle, regression. Let me go back up. No actions running, and I'm waiting for it's looking through. So it's basically going through my data. Now that I've told it what kind of model, it's going to actually look at my data with that in mind, just to make sure there's no new data issues for that particular kind of machine learning. So it's running. So a regret. So there are, there are opportunities. Let me see if I can click on those. Give me just a second while it's running. I'm having, there's my share screen. So I can view details on regression and it'll tell me it'll give me ideas. Like, let's say I'm not sure. If I click on these, it'll give me ideas of other problems that have been solved so that I can do that. So, okay, so it's gone through, it's uploaded, I've picked my algorithm, it doesn't see any issues, so it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, we can move along. Let's go to our next step. Well, what we're doing now is auto modeling. Alteryx is running through a wide range of models automatically, looking at that data, doing the machine learning, and it is going to go through them one at a time, quickly, of course, and it's going to come up with a variety of options for me. So back in the day, I did my graduate work in in data science. So back in the day, what a data scientist would do is literally go into their noggin and say, okay, I know I have this data. This is what I'm trying to predict. So let's see, let me remember what models are out there. Maybe there's some new algorithms out on the market too that I want to explore. So I'll use the ones that I know from my education. I'll use the new ones out there because I'm always having to stay on top of what other models are being developed out there. And then I'm going to try them. And I have to know about every model because they all have different assumptions about the data and different things I might have to set up. Well, that's what a data scientist does by training. And they're really good at it. And it's a lot of running lots and lots of models. So you might wonder, like, that's what a data scientist does a lot of times once they get through all that data cleanup and prep. And a data scientist actually, I can't remember what the statistic was, but it's something like 70, 90%. A lot of a data scientist's work is just doing that first stage of getting that data ready, because data scientists aren't typically doing any reporting on it. So this is why if you're already doing reporting on data, you kind of have a head start on that data science by getting all that data ready. So as it's going through, it will come up with ranking metrics. So you can see on the right, there are metrics that are used to evaluate models. And so you can see it's going to actually give you some education here on the right. It's going to also give you education about model types. So you can see it's teaching your analyst about all these different kinds of models and how they work and considerations. Now, AutoML is doing all that under the hood, but the idea is, as I'm doing it under the hood, I'm also going to teach you a little bit about what's going on under the hood. Okay, so now AutoML has run through, and you can see that it's starting, it's all the way done now. And I didn't time it. I could have started a timer, but it went through, let's see how many models. If we scroll down, it evaluated 8 different models for me. And when you evaluate one model, you might try different knobs on that model as well. That's what data scientists would do. It did all of that for me. That could have been weeks and weeks of work from a data scientist. So this is the power now of automation and AI that we're putting to work to solve AI and ML problems. So you can see it picked different ones, it scores them. We won't drill into all the nitty-gritties today. I'm going to invite you at the end if you want a much deeper, walk through, all the bells and whistles we can, but I want to just call out the highlights. So, and it tells me which ranking metric it decided to use. So you can see there's actually a wide range of metrics that you use to evaluate machine learning models, and it tells me which one. And you might remember that on the right there, when I had opened it up, I could see it was teaching me about those too. So it's kind of giving me the education. So now I've got a model, and it also even gives me insights about different things it might have created in the machine learning pipeline, things it did to transform my data. It will reveal all of that to me. So Great. We'll stick with the recommended one for now, but it lets you know that you can actually do some things if you want to play around with different models in a pretty fast way. And there's even like you can get into what if analysis and like what if I had this in my data instead? What if I did this? Like there's a lot of opportunities to do that what if analysis. So now I've picked my XGBoost regressor model. It's got, it tells me about what feature. So, and basically it tells me all the data it's selected. I won't get into this idea of feature engineering, but that's the fancy word for, hey, I'm going to take a column of data or multiple columns of data, and I'm going to create new columns from it. So here's an example. I had all this payment data. It might say, you know what? Let me take the date of the invoice and let me break that up into 7 columns, one for every day of the week, so that then I can take into account what day of the week I sent the invoice. Because maybe if I send the invoice on Monday, they pay it faster than if I send it on Friday, just maybe. Now, the machine learning under the hood is what's going to tell me statistically if that hypothesis is true or not. But that's kind of the idea of it, just to let you know. Okay, so now we've got, it's still loading the results. So it's gone through that model. It's completed the evaluation. There's this, so here's this evaluate model. So let me click next on it. I jumped ahead. Let me go back to evaluate model. I'm sorry. What it means by holdout data. So we talked about the way machine learning works. It's taking all my historic data and it's using that to predict the future. Well, I don't want to give it all of my data. I only want to give it maybe 75 or 80% of my data. And here's why. To be able to tell if my model's any good, I want to actually give it data it hasn't seen yet. After the model's developed, I want to say, okay, smarty pants model, here's some data for you. Like, how are you going to do on this data? And that's how we actually evaluate models. And then once we put a model out into what I like to say the wild, you evaluate yet again. And this is the part of machine learning where you continuously can monitor and manage your models. And we can talk about that more later. So, okay, so I've got a model. And again, we can come to you to go even deeper and go through all of the bells and whistles on this. What I want you to know is after I develop my model, I can generate a PowerPoint, which will summarize my model. I can send those to a zip because maybe I have to report it to leadership about what I've done. I can integrate this model. I can export it as an Alteryx designer model so that I can gain more insights on it. I can export a Python script even. So let's say I'm not a Python coder, but I'm interested in learning. So maybe I'm going to come up with my Python script so I can play with that a little bit. So that's the gist of AutoML. And again, this is just a flyover for today. I just really wanted to give you a taste of what the opportunities are. And there's other AI and ML opportunities in the platform. We have natural language processing, we have computer vision, optical character recognition, reading PDFs. There's a lot with spatial analytics where people are using ML to do site selection. So again, just a flyover, especially because a lot of organizations are like, hey, how do we get started in this? Especially if we don't have a lot of data scientists.
This space is fascinating to us, and it's just moving so quickly. And it feels like with AI and machine learning, we're off to the races. And I think I'd love to get your perspective. I mean, this is something we're getting asked about all the time, and we're covering all the time. Is this? I think everybody just became aware with ChatGPT the implications of artificial intelligence becoming involved in our daily work lives. And Alteryx has been really talking about this. I mean, we've been covering Alteryx for a long time now. We've been talking about this for a long time, but I don't think people have recognized just how far you can go. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about how you see things beginning to evolve. I mean, you have such a perspective on this. I mean, what should companies be concerned about right now in terms of being left behind by this, off to the races mentality with AI?
Yeah, I think what companies should be concerned about is not getting started at all. Which fortunately, what we see, what the research bears out, is that uh, uh, most companies are doing something in that space. It's really more about scaling now, and so I think companies need to recognize that the way you're going to scale is find better ways to equip people who aren't historically or classically trained as data scientists and taking advantage of automated tools to get you further along that journey. The other thing is, I think generative AI and large language models have been both a blessing and a curse to those of us in the space or to the work being done in the space. And here's why I say that. Generative AI, chat GPT, large language models, they're a very thin slice of the capability of AI and ML. And honestly, people are finding really practical ways to use it. But in day-to-day business, it's not necessarily what's solving the most problems for business. And there's a lot of opportunity with even the most vanilla of machine learning, classifying things, clustering things, coming up with, customer segmentation, the prediction, like I just showed, like predicting, like when's my cash flow going to come in? Some of those things are the low hanging fruit, and they don't, like I said earlier, they don't have to be those sexy moonshots. So I think it's more, how do we think about really to use the word democratize, right? I know that word can get overused, and that's a popular word for us because it's what we do. We do expand the reach of analytics and data science and AI and ML in organizations. So I think it's more about scaling those efforts, and how do you think about scaling those efforts? And I really, the idea is, hey, when we think about doing AI and ML, we should really have front of mind is this trying to solve a business problem like generating new revenue, opening up a new market? Or am I trying to protect some revenue or create some cost savings? Have I thought about what's the actual application? And as I do that machine learning work, involve those business stakeholders, let them know what you're doing, let them know what you're seeing, as you go through the machine learning, and include them, because that's how you're going to educate them. Because sometimes your business stakeholders, if you bring them on that journey with you, they are going to come up with your next best idea. And also be willing to think about, it's not always tangible or clearly written dollars. Like, it could be around reducing risk or ensuring compliance to some regulatory process. And those things, of course, are very valuable or equally valuable to a business. So making sure you're thinking. And so this slide is just to really help you think about what are the tangible business outcomes. If I know, have any time for questions, I would be more than happy to entertain some questions as well.
Well, we have some questions. Actually, one of them just got answered right there with that slide. So good job. Very, very, very well placed.
Perfect.
So one of the questions is, how can I increase the use of machine learning in my organization?
Yeah, I think we actually touched on that one a little bit too, but it's great to kind of drill into that a little bit more. It's recognizing that more and more individuals need to be equipped to be able to do AI and ML. That there are only a handful, or some fortunate organizations might have bigger teams of data scientists, but certainly not most organizations. And so thinking about how I can start equipping the business more to tap into these things with these, assisted technologies have come a long way. Ours has come a long way. When I was on the customer side of Alteryx, I actually participated in the development of these technologies as a data science leader to give feedback. And they really are impressive now. Like, you can really achieve some meaningful outcomes, and more importantly, reliable outcomes, trusted outcomes. I mean, as we know, with generative AI really taking the stage right now, a lot of what we're seeing is not trustworthy. However, that doesn't speak for all AI and ML. In fact, most AI and ML, especially a lot of the proven models, are very trustworthy. So I think that's it. And the more you equip the business, by the way, and they start understanding how they can use AI and ML, they're the domain experts. So they're going to come up with some really great project ideas.
Yeah, and I would love to have you back on to talk deeper about kind of the bigger picture here, because we could have a whole nother hour of just talking about
it's a great topic, isn't it?
The democratization of knowledge workers, and this idea that you showed of this wall between the business user and the data scientist, that could very well just disappear. And I think it's interesting as well that a lot of people are up in arms that AI may eliminate jobs and so forth, but I think there's just no substitute for the human interpretation and creativity and being able to see things in a uniquely human way that AI isn't going to have any impact on anytime soon when you are looking at things. So
as a data scientist, I do not feel concerned.
right, exactly. Nor do I. But I will close with this because I think we wanna bring up a slide now, which is basically where people can learn more about their analytics maturity. And I'm curious with that point, and you can go to alteryx.com and learn about.
If you go to that link that's being shown right now, you'll be able to do your own. I think it's literally like a 5-minute version, a very miniature version of that analytics maturity assessment. And you can do it anonymously, but there's an opportunity for you to share information if you want to follow up as well.
Well, so who would you suggest in an organization click that link? I mean, where do you see
everyone? No, honestly, and I know that sounds so, really though, because when I go into an organization, I actually like all levels to get their perspective, because sometimes the leaders don't realize what's happening and where they've come or where the gaps are. And sometimes the individual contributors don't know, they don't have the insight of the leaders and what they're doing, and initiatives may be broader across the company. So it's actually helpful. Now, what I did last week was it was a room of leaders, frontline managers and above, and having them do it. And even among them, they had some disparate views of where they thought they were. But it's a great place to start and to get the conversation going and to help get a more cohesive. So it is better when you do it with a larger number of people. Of course, we're data people, more data is better, right? Typically, but it does help you to get a diverse set of insights from your company.
Well, and that's not the only value you can get from going to alteryx.com. There is a whole host of resources and best practices and white
free
papers
training.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge community of expertise that you can avail yourself.
400,000 in our community.
Is that right?
Our user community online is 400,000. It's really robust and amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And again, I always encourage anybody who's thinking about this sort of thing to begin to engage. That there's nothing to fear. That you will enjoy it and you'll learn, and regardless of how regardless of how it all ends up for you, you should absolutely talk to the smartest people in the solutions categories that you're considering, and certainly Alteryx is right at the top of the list. So, Heather, thanks very much for the time today. This was great, and like I said, we could go for another hour. I might invite you back, and we might just go for another hour anyway. But again, thanks very much.
Thank you for having us on the show.
So there you have it, another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Heather Harris and Alteryx for that fine presentation, and we appreciate your participation as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.